Welcome to the RANsquawk CE morning briefing for Wednesday, 7th of October 2009. Through 9 o'clock now in London, so a bit of a review of the overnight news and where we stand at the moment in the markets. First of all, in terms of where the US finished yesterday, it did obviously see a lot of dollar weakness, which did boost some of the commodity-related stocks. And on Wall Street, we did finish in positive territory, up around 1.5 to 1.75% across the Dow, Nasdaq 100 and S&P 500. That in turn did weigh somewhat in fixed income. We closed in the pit yesterday down 3 ticks, as well as seeing a rather tepid auction, the first of the 3 of the week from the US Treasury, where we saw the $39 billion 3-year note had a bid to cover of 2.76, which was slightly below the average in previous, with indirect slightly weaker at 49.1%. So eyes very much there turning to the 10-year issue we'll see later in the session for $20 billion worth. Again, usual time will be 6 o'clock in London, so midday in Chicago. In terms of the positive finish in the equity markets in the US did feed through to the Nikkei in Japan, which did finish up 1.1%. Again, very much following on from the gains in those commodity-related stocks and that dollar weakness. However, at the moment in the UK and Europe, we are trading around unchanged at the moment. Take a look then in terms of some US news flow that was released overnight, starting off with some Fed commentary from member Honig, who said that while the US economy is clearly rebounding, it is too soon to begin to withdraw the Federal Reserve's massive support. Honig added that he would not support a tight monetary policy in the current environment. However, Bloomberg did report that Honig said that central banks should start raising interest rates sooner rather than later, and such tightening would not derail the US economic recovery. Elsewhere as well, something might get a bit more attention when the US players come in. Out of the Wall Street Journal, the Fed threats about commercial real estate. Just an article generalising that banks in the US are slow to take losses on their commercial real estate loans being battered by slumping property values and rental payments, according to the Federal Reserve's presentation to banking regulators last month. Again, highlighting some of the concerns there around the US commercial real estate sector. Elsewhere in Europe, according to a report in the FT Deutschland, the Riksbank governor rejected speculation that the Swedish central bank will raise interest rates before late next year. And also in foreign exchange news, it's worth noting that the Japanese Finance Minister Fuji said the current level of the yen is consistent with acceptable market activity. Fuji also repeated his stance that the government should avoid intervention in currency markets in general, but it may need to act in the markets under extreme circumstances. It is worth noting though, with the dollar index weakening again this morning, currently down 0.2, dollar yen itself in the major pairs has already struck a 9-month low, and it's getting close to that 88 handle, which is seen as large defence barriers. So we'll be keeping a close eye if Fuji does indeed hit the wires, should the yen continue to strengthen throughout this session and throughout the rest of the week. Elsewhere, on the dollar front, the French economy minister saying overnight that talk of dropping dollar in oil trade is speculation and is not on the agenda. In terms of WTI crude futures, obviously as mentioned, the dollar is trading a little bit weaker this morning, which is giving commodities in general a bit of a boost. In particular, spot gold has again pushed up to a new fresh record high at 10.45.42. That's $1,045.42. We're up around 0.25% there on the session. And elsewhere, WTI crude futures also higher. Did see some minor bullish data coming out of the weekly API numbers after the NYMEX pit close yesterday, which saw API crude oil inventories down 254,000 against their prior build of 2.7 million. In terms of UK news, a couple of data points overnight in terms of nationwide consumer confidence. That came in at a 1.5-year high at 71, above the expected 68, and the previous was also positively revised upwardly to 65. And elsewhere, UK overall shop prices were deflationary in September for a second consecutively month, falling 0.1% compared to the same month a year ago. In terms of equities, as already mentioned, in Europe we're pretty much unchanged at the moment. However, a couple of individual stock stories worth noting. HSBC, company will have to delay raising its dividend if new capital rules were applied too heavily or too quickly, according to the head of investment banking. Elsewhere, for British Airways, the company says 1,700 positions to be cut in the UK. And in other news, in the FT, they report that British Airways expects to post significant loss for the second consecutive year. That would be the first time in the company's history. Elsewhere, Sainsbury's, they're seen lower after giving a trade update pre-market today. Their Q2 comparable sales were up 5.4%, 0.1 lower than the street estimate. And elsewhere, taking a look at Metro AG, they've also been under significant pressure since the open, as Otto Bergheim Group is cutting its stake in the company to around 10% from 18.46. As well, the pricing according to most traders, around 35 euros, which is a significant discount to the current trading price of around 36.5 euros. Elsewhere, coming from the Eurostoxx Banco Santander, the Brazilian unit raised $8.05 billion in a record initial public offering in Brazil. That's the largest IPO on the US exchange in 18 months. And also Julius Baer there to acquire ING's Bank of Switzerland for 520 million Swiss francs in cash. Julius Baer saying the acquisition is expected to be EPS neutral in 2010. Take a look then for the schedule. Volumes in fixed income in Europe and the UK pretty thin at the moment. Obviously quite a few players may well sitting on the sidelines ahead of the interest rate decisions from both the Bank of England and the European Central Bank tomorrow. Just around 100,000 contracts so far in bunds. That allied as well to a pretty light economic calendar. In terms of the Eurozone GDP numbers we'll get at 10 o'clock London. They are the Q2 final figures, so not expecting too much there. We'll get the German factory orders for August at 11, NBA mortgage apps at 12, and then no major economic releases from the US today. We'll just have the oil inventory numbers from the Department of Energy. That'll be at 3:30. Quite a lot in terms of supply though. Germany, €2 billion 30-year tap. That'll be at 10 o'clock. The Bank of England conducting a 2042 index linked tap at 10:30. Reverse auctions from both the BOE and the Fed later, and then that's 10-year notes, $20 billion worth later on in the US session.